We are so close to test drum. I'm pretty sure it's going to be next week. You know, I don't have any like actual info on that, but by how KI Live went and all the teasers that we've been getting recently, it just kind of makes sense for it to be next week. Plus, early April is when they usually release the spring update anyway, at least to test drum. So yeah, next week's already April. Like March is almost over. So yeah, test drum's definitely coming out really soon. I want to talk about some of the things that they went over in KI Live that I thought were the most interesting. And one of those things is critical. We got a screenshot of the test drum and some new changes that they're doing with critical, as well as the shadow gauge. So those are two things that I want to talk about in this video. Also some other things I'll probably just mention that I saw during KI Live that were interesting. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did get a new preprocessor for my mic. It's not a new mic, but it's what I plug my mic into for the audio to sound better. So I don't know if you guys noticed the difference, but my other one broke. So I got a new one. If it sounds better, then awesome. If it sounds the same, that's also good. So just wanted to let you guys know if it sounds different. But here we go. So I want to look at this screenshot here because this one shows the new crit system. I mean, it's the same crit system, but it shows you more information when you're in battle. And this is going to be super useful because in all of my testing that I've done with critical, you know, these numbers, I just had to either kind of guess what they were or try to figure it out myself by how much damage I'm doing and how much crit I have and stuff like that. So we have a critical rating on our characters. Mine for my storm is 752. And basically what we try to do in PvE is get the highest crit as well as the highest damage. Damage is still like the top stat that you want, but having a decent amount of critical is still good because you want that multiplier to go up. And crit is more important against higher level enemies because they're probably going to have more block and this rating is going to go down. Well, not the rating, but the multiplier is going to go down because they basically resist your crit more. So that's how it works. And in this screenshot, we can see that the player is using Shatterhorn and they've clicked it. And I'm guessing that when you click it, the stats pop up because you click your spell before you click what enemy, it kind of gives you stats on these enemies and what your spell is going to do against these enemies. We've never had anything like this before. That's why I'm excited for it. But on the left, the critical wand under it is 94%. I'm guessing that is the player's 94% chance to critical. I'm guessing that's what that means. And so they're going to cast a spell at 94% chance to critical because at max level, we no longer have the crit chance. Our critical rating doesn't give us a percentage for the crit chance anymore. So I think for max level, it was about 95. Maybe right here it says 94. So that kind of makes sense with where I thought it was at. And basically you crit most of the time, 95%. So there is a small chance that you don't crit. And I've seen it before. It does happen when you don't crit. And nothing you can do about that. That's why we don't really go for crit anymore because the higher crit you have doesn't mean you're going to crit more often. Back to the screenshot. So the other one in the middle there is the multiplier. Against this enemy in Mirage, the player will be getting a 1.62 times multiplier on their spell. It used to be when you crit, you get that 2 times multiplier. Basically, every time you crit, you got double damage against the enemy. And they changed it so that now there's some kind of multiplier and you do between 1 and 2 times damage every time that you critical. And the higher level, the higher rank the enemies, the more block they have, all that kind of factors in to what this multiplier is going to be. If you go back to Wizard City and you fight a golem or lost soul or whatever, you're going to do double damage. If you crit, you're going to do double damage because they don't have any block or anything like that. It'd be interesting to try this in test drum to go back and see if it is 2 times in those. I'm sure it is, but maybe they do give the lost soul some block. I don't know, but I don't know what kind of crazy. Hey, I've seen lost souls crit before, so anything's possible. But yeah, that is the multiplier. So using Shadowhorn, they are going to get a 1.62 times multiplier on the enemy, and then 5% block on the right there. I'm not sure if that is the enemy's chance to block or the player's block. It makes sense for it to be the enemy's block because you click a spell and it shows the stats on the enemy that you're about to hit, and you see a 5% block, and it's like, okay, maybe this means that the enemy has a 5% chance of blocking this. And if the crit goes through, you're doing 1.62 times. So I think what happened is the devs lowered the enemy's like block chance by a lot because we're not doing double damage every time anymore. So the trade-off is we do, you know, this multiplier. We don't do 2 times damage all the time, but the enemies block less. The next screenshot here is the shadow gauge. And let me quick show you in game first where we're at for shadow rating. So we do have a stat called shadow pip rating, and the base for level 140 is 70. We don't really know exactly what this means, except that the higher rating you have, the higher chance that you get each turn to get a shadow pip, or the higher, you know, your bar, your gauge fills every time, like every turn. And it's rare that I get a shadow pip first turn, like it's really rare. And I get shadows second turn, like okay amount of the time, and then by third or fourth turn, you know, it's pretty much like you have a shadow by that point. Fifth turn, I think there's like a guarantee. I feel like it's like fifth or sixth turn, like it's guaranteed that you should have one by that point. But yeah, the shadow pip rating should allow you to fill that gauge faster, and they're improving this by giving us an actual percentage in battle. So this is obviously a good change, and the shadow gauge was just something that we would look at and be like, okay, you know, you kind of just look at it and you're like, well, I have like, I don't know, 3/4 of the way of the bar filled, so I should get a shadow pip next turn. And then next turn comes around and it's like so close and you don't have it. Well, now we can actually see the percentage, and you can see that it'll be at like 98% or something like that, and you'll get mad. And yeah, that'll be a thing now. So we do have a percentage, and it'll be interesting to test this because I just like when we're given more stats in battle in these kind of scenarios. We can also see like each round on average how much percentage we're getting towards the shadow pip gauge. Like for me at 121 rating, how much shadow gauge do I fill every single turn because of that? You know, is it good to have a lot of rating? Not like I'm really going for it, but you know, the Dragoon gear gives the rating, and what else does? My wand actually gives decent amount of rating as well. And you know, the good old Malister robe gives +12. What's interesting about the shadow gauge is it's not a huge deal for PvE because players will hit turn 2 usually. Like almost every fight will hit turn 2. And if I get a shadow, then I use Sound of Musicology. If I don't, I use Stormlord. I don't care if I get a shadow. You know, basically a shadow means I do extra damage. You know, I use this instead of Stormlord. And first turn, I would just Frenzy unless I have like a full group of people or it's an easy enemy, then we just, you know, Tempest or Wyvern. So yeah, usually PvE battles don't last longer than like 3 turns or so, because if you have a group that's coordinated, you know, most fights are really easy. But yeah, this is probably more of a PvP thing where it's useful to see how close you are to the next shadow, but it still could be useful in PvE to at least have more numbers, see a percentage. So there is going to be a spell audit in the upcoming test ROM, and we're already getting one of the cards that they're changing, and that is Dark Pact. So they released this on the Wiz devs Twitter recently, and basically what they're doing is they're changing Dark Pact to do 250 moon damage to yourself, and it puts 2 25% blades on a target. These blades don't stack, you know, they're the same blade. You can sharpen this, so you could get 2 35% blades. So, I mean, not bad. But, yeah, you're going to have to use them in 2 different hits in order to actually get those 2 blades. So, obviously more of a PvP focused change here, because having 2 blades in PvP is way better than having 2 of the same blades in PvP is way better than PvE. PvE, you just want to hit in like 1 turn, or, you know, max like 2 turns, hit once, enemy dies. So from the PvE side of things with this one, it's interesting because we don't really use, at least for me and, you know, my experience of using this spell, we don't really use Dark Pact too often unless we're doing like a crazy blade stack strategy where you need just a ton of blades. People kind of, you know, then decide to resort to Dark Pact just because you need extra damage. But if you're not going for that, then Dark Pact really shouldn't be like a regular spell that you're using to blade one of the people on your team. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Why do you need to take damage in order to do this blade? There's so many other options for a 30% blade that you probably don't even need to use this. You know, you can buy Balance and Dragon Blades that are 30%. You can also just go ahead and do a Spirit or Elemental Blade that's 40%. So that's already way better than this. Yeah, you can sharpen it, and it goes up to 40 in the game now. Or if you sharpen these, it goes up to 35 and you get 2. I just don't see this change as being too crazy impactful for PvE, because this spell, it's not one of the best, spells to use in PvE for blading. Like, definitely not really required. There's so many other spells. There's so many ways to get sharpened as well, that 25% is pretty low for the blades that people use when they PvE. So I just want to mention that quick for a PvE side of things on these changes. Most of the spell changes that I look at, I'm going to take it from a PvE perspective, because that's just how I play the game. So yeah, you can look forward to that in the future. Whenever they decide to drop test realm, we'll be looking at the spell changes. So I'm going to end the video here, because I don't want to go too long about all this stuff, because I mean, test realm's coming up anyway, and we'll be talking about it way more during all of that. But just want to let you guys know what's going on, kind of my opinion of some of the changes so far, and I'm hyped for it. Like, there's going to be some good changes in this test realm. I'm excited to give feedback and look through all of it with you guys, kind of give opinions of different spells and some of these changes, because it's going to be good. It's going to be exciting stuff. And so far, like, they've teased a lot from this test realm, and I'm looking forward to it. Like, there's actually a decent amount of stuff in here, and a lot of stuff I haven't even covered yet, because it's just so much, and I don't want to throw it all into one video yet. But yeah, if you guys are excited for test realm, please leave a big like on this video. Definitely subscribe, turn on post notifications, so you know when I post that first test realm video and all the other ones. Hopefully next week sometime, we'll see. But thank you guys so much for subscribing, liking, all that stuff that you guys do, and for joining if you want to join and become a member. That's awesome too. So hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you all next time.